all towards innovation and bring in new ideas, thoughts, and viewpoints that will advance this field. At Amity, we are passionate to take new initiatives and build a strong foundation to foster national and global development. We are immensely grateful to one and all who are here to participate both in offline and online mode in these deliberations. Thank you so much once again for being a part of this conference and making it a huge success. The lighting of the lamp signifies the acknowledgement and blessings. We begin the ceremony with the lighting of the lamp accompanied by an invocation dedicated to this light in our lives. May I request the dignitaries on the dais to kindly participate in the lighting of the ceremonial lamp before starting today's proceedings. I request everybody in the dais to kindly step forward, please.
भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। जय जय हे भगवती सुरभारती जय जय हे भगवती सुरभारती तव चरणों प्रणामा नाद ब्रह्ममयि हे वागेश्वरी नाद ब्रह्ममयि हे वागेश्वरी शरणं ते गच्छामः त्वमसि शरण्या त्रिभुवन धन्या सुरमुनिवन्दिता चरणा नवरस मधुरा कविता मुखरा स्मित रुचि रुचिरा भरणा जय जय हे भगवती सुरभारती जय जय हे भगवती सुरभारती।
Thank you, one and all. Presenting a Tulsi sapling is a tradition at Amity, and we take pride in welcoming our guests with Tulsi sapling. May I request Honorable Vice Chancellor to kindly felicitate Professor Partha Majumdar with a Tulsi sapling. May I now request Dr. W. Selvamurthy to kindly felicitate Dr. Priya Srinivas. We are extremely thankful to everybody. Moving forward, Professor Dr. B.C. Das is the organizing secretary of this conference and is the chairman of Amity Institute of Molecular Medicine and Stem Cell Research, Dean Health and Allied Sciences, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, Noida. Dr. B.C. Das was the founder director of Institute of Cytology and Preventive Oncology, ICPO of ICMR, Noida till 2008, and later he joined as Dr. Gurbaksh Singh Chair Professor and Director of ACBR, Delhi University. Dr. Das did his PhD from Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, and has worked several years with Nobel laureate Professor Harald Zuhasen at German Cancer Research Center, Heidelberg, Germany. He has made outstanding contributions in the field of cancer research, human genetics, and tumor virology. During the last 40 years of his distinguished research career, he has published more than 210 research papers in reputed international journals. In India, Dr. Das has pioneered the work on human papillomavirus that causes cervical and other cancers, and his laboratory was the HPV Referral Center of WHO for whole of Southeast Asia. So far, 36 PhDs and 79 MD, MS, DNB, and DM students have received their degrees under his supervision and guidance. It is my utmost privilege to request Professor Dr. B.C. Das to kindly give his welcome address.
Thank you, Dr. Pooja, and very good evening to one and all. On behalf of our Honorable Founder President, who is a great visionary, and the founder of the Amity Education Group, and our Honorable and most dynamic Chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan, and our also dynamic Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Balvinder Shukla, and also Dr. Asim Chauhan, who is also the Vice Chancellor of the Amity University, Haryana. And on my own behalf and on behalf of the Amity University, all the faculty, deans, and all other members of this Amity fraternity, and on my own behalf, I welcome all the delegates, keynote speakers, invited speakers, chairpersons, students, and all other members who are joining to this meeting of the 41st Indian Association for Cancer Research. It's the annual cancer conference of Indian Association for Cancer Research on combating cancer, biology to therapy to drug resistance, and an international symposium on cancer and stem cells. As you all know, in the morning lecture also, and those who are working on cancer, it is a IACR meeting, that cancer has now taken over cardiovascular disease, which was the top killer disease, cardiovascular, cancer, and diabetes. But cardiovascular was top, but now in the medium developed countries as well as the developed countries, it has become the top killer disease. The cancer has become the top killer disease. And another 2 decades time, the India will be cancer capital of the globe, of the world, because already India has become the diabetic capital of the world, and very soon it will be the cancer capital. So there is a need for extensive research in this field. But then you have to, many of the diseases, including these non-communicable diseases, the communicable diseases under control, of course, except the COVID-19, for which we were actually to hold this meeting last year, but we wanted everybody to be present physically here in the Amity campus. It's the first time IACR meeting is being held here. So I didn't agree to hold it in an online mode. But this year also, because of the Omicron, I could not, it was a lot of confusion in the beginning. Even I could not get up to 31st January. Only that day, the Nobel laureate, the Harold Varmus, he gave me time up to 31st of January, that by that time I will be able to tell I don't want to participate in the online, but I will come physically. But that day he told that I will not come because Omicron in India is not coming down. But suddenly within a week's time it started coming down, but he once decided he didn't come, but he had certainly sent his best wishes, and you have seen in the proceedings, it is there. So the cancer has become one of the most important disease or the killer disease. So vigorous research in this field is essential. And that's why we thought that at least it is in a hybrid mode, we can have this conference. And for that, hybrid mode is a very challenging, that you have to have all the arrangement for the physical as well as in the online mode. So two modes, it's a very difficult, and I know it's very challenging. So we need your cooperations. And from morning, the initiation session, it has gone very good till now, to my understanding. And but it is with your cooperations. And so I would request rest of the 3 days, it is a 4 days meeting, to cooperate and to prepare yourself beforehand. When you join without much delay, you can join those who are in the online, and those who are in the physical also, they should be ready with that. The meeting starts. The meeting was in the morning. It was started with the MG Oration Award, which was given by Professor Neeta Singh, was the ex-head of the Biochemistry, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, and it was MG Oration, who was the founder of the Indian Association for Cancer Research Association. And this is followed by different sessions it has gone through. And therefore, I will request that the speakers and chairperson can complete their talks in time. But now that the major attractions of this conference, just briefly, I will tell that you have all the scientific sessions.
Dr. Das, would you let's welcome our Chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan, who has just joined. Let's give a big clap to the Chancellor.
We welcome our
sir.
Honorable, most dynamic Chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan. Welcome, sir.
Dr. Das, an absolute pleasure. Please, sorry for interrupting your discourse. Thank you.
Sir, thank you. So besides the scientific session that we have, the major attraction is that the general body meeting was held, and after that there was a panel discussion. Already it was held in how we can avoid the non-reproducibility of results in science and the concerns of ethics. So many of the science we cannot reproduce, not only cancer, but other research also. It is a concern. That's why I have specifically mentioned that the Amity takes a lot of care for the ethics, and it is taught from the top deans to all the top faculty, including the Vice Chancellor, takes the class for the PhD students to bring them that how the ethics is important in research. Otherwise, it is a criminal or the crime that if you do something fraud or manipulations of the data. So then there are attractions of this. So this was coordinated by Dr. Sudhir Krishna from NCBS, Professor Sudhir Krishna. So there are other attractions for which you are known that the top cancer scientists, one is Dr. Robert Weinberg, which will be felicitating him, and he will be the keynote speaker at the end of this session, and he will be given a special convocation where he will be given the honoris causa for the Doctor of Science. And also tomorrow, also around this time, the Matthews Meyerson, Professor Matthews Meyerson from Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, he will be also given, he will give the keynote address, as well as will give the honor him with the honoris causa, DSc honoris causa, as well as we have some sessions with the contribution of the women scientists in cancer research and in science in general, cancer research and treatment. So that will be coordinated by Dr. Rita Mulerkar from the ACTRAC Mumbai, and she is here, physically here, and it is tomorrow, or I think it is tomorrow, day after tomorrow. It is, I don't remember exactly. So all these attractions, but there are also 3 public lectures are there for awareness is very important. One is by Professor N.K. Ganguly, who is the ex-Director General of ICMR. Then another by Professor Sandeep Kumar, who was the surgical oncology head at KGMU, King George Medical University, and ex-director of the AIMS Bhopal, and another by the newly appointed, the NCI, National Cancer Institute Director, Dr. Lalit Kumar. He is also at AIMS as a head of medical oncology and head of the chief of the IRCH. So these 3, and in one, the public lecture, we have also invited the Amity schools and other schools to for this public lecture to attend, to have their basic knowledge about the cancers in the students of the 10, 11, 12 students. So with this, I once again welcome all the delegates and have their fruitful scientific interactions and safe and comfortable stay at Noida. Certainly safe means you have to still, Omicron is around, but certainly we could hear that it has suddenly coming down. Maybe we expect and we pray God that by this end of this, that it is the end of this, the COVID-19, it will come and it will be the blessings to the humanity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Das, for giving us an overview of what all proceeded today and also what is in store for the next 3 days. Thank you very much for your welcome address. I would now request Professor Dr. Partha Majumdar, National Science Chair and Distinguished Professor and Founder, NIBMG, Kalyani, Kolkata, to kindly give his opening address.
Good evening, everyone. It's really my pleasant duty to thank all of you for having assembled here. I also thank everyone who has assembled online, and I pay my gratitude to all of you for making this 41st session of IACR in 2022 a grand success. If it was not for the foresight of the Chancellor, the Vice Chancellors, etc., of the Amity University, we would be hard-pressed to hold the IACR 2022. So I, again, on behalf of the Indian Association for Cancer Research, I express our gratitude to Mr. Chauhan and others, Dr. Chauhan and others, and especially to Dr. B.C. Das for organizing this meeting. Tirelessly, he has worked and organized this meeting. It is very difficult to organize such a meeting in a mixed mode, in this hybrid mode that we have assembled here, both in terms of physical presence and all of the transportation, accommodation, etc. In spite of that, he has actually put together a fabulous science program. And we have had a good panel discussion and wonderful plenary talks and orations. And the next 3 days is also poised to be full of grand statements about cancer biology and about handling of cancer patients. We were told this morning that cancer has actually overtaken cardiac problems, and therefore cancer is becoming the big problem in the world and also in India, especially because of various kinds of environmental exposures. Of course, fortunately, smoking has considerably reduced even in a country like India, but use of chewing tobacco probably has not come down to the level that one expects for it to have an impact on the incidence of oral cancer, particularly. We were also told this morning that there are some cancers of very specific, that are of specific importance and interest in India. Oral cancer is one, gallbladder cancer is the second, and cervical cancer is the third. Cervical cancer, of course, we now have a vaccine, but there are probably vaccines that will also be discovered for other kinds of cancers as well. Be that as it may, the biology of cancer, the genetics of cancer is of extreme importance, and it is playing a role in therapy and in various kinds of drug discovery, making oncology more precise, and therefore precision oncology is something that one is talking about, and not just talking about. It is really has become a reality for certain kinds of cancers. We've also been told this morning that 50% of cancers can actually be reduced by controlling the environment, which is actually completely true. The remaining 50% needs to be researched on, and one needs to do this kind of research that many of us are engaged in, particularly to figure out the molecular underpinnings of these cancers that will enable identification of proper precision management and also proper precision therapy. So given all of this, the Indian Association for Cancer Research is poised to be on an upswing, and I again thank the Amity University and all of the governors of Amity University for hosting us here. And I would like to express finally my deepest gratitude to Professor B.C. Das, without whose tireless efforts we could not have assembled here and physically, and those of you who have assembled online could not have attended these lectures that we have had today and are poised to have in the coming few days. So again, thank you very much, and particularly I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Dr. Atul Chauhan for coming along and for your kind support in hosting the Indian Association for Cancer Research's 41st meeting. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Majumdar, for once again reiterating the fact that how important this conference is and how much there is to learn from each other. And we are very thankful that so many people have also joined online, because that has made the reach of this conference global. Thank you so much. I would now request Dr. Priya Srinivas, who's General Secretary IACR RGCB Trivandrum, to kindly brief about the IACR. Dr. Priya Srinivas is the General Secretary of IACR, and her major focus of her laboratory is to understand the mechanisms involved in early onset of breast cancer, BRCA1 mutated hereditary breast ovarian cancers, and to develop anti-cancer, anti-metastatic strategies based on cues from tumor microenvironment, as well as development of non-invasive diagnostic tools for early detection of cancer. Dr. Priya Srinivas, over to you, please. Thank you.
Good evening. Indian Association for Cancer Research was founded by Padma Shri Dr. M.G. Dio in November 1980 in Mumbai, with the envision towards advancements in research encompassing all aspects of cancers, as well as promote interaction among researchers in this field. Today, IACR serves as a platform holding international conferences, workshops, local meetings, awareness programs, and much more, which traditionally brings students, researchers, postdoctoral fellows, and young investigators, senior scientists, medical faculties, oncologists, industrialists, and cancer survivors together under one single roof, thus encouraging significant developments in all arenas related to cancer prevention and therapeutics. The aim of the association is to advance research in all aspects of cancer, promote interaction among scientists in this field, and spread awareness about cancer among common people. IACR publishes IACR newsletter for the dissemination of information about IACR activities and the latest scientific advancements. In addition to eminent scientists, research students and postdoctoral fellows are also encouraged to contribute to IACR newsletter to provide their perspectives on the latest developments in this field. Annual convention of IACR is one of the major activities of IACR, which is conducted every year. At IACR annual conventions, eminent biomedical scientists and clinicians from all over the world are invited to deliver lectures. IACR has constituted various competitive awards for the from the generous donations of several well-wishers. Travel awards are given to students and postdoctoral fellows to attend annual conventions of IACR. To encourage young students and bring out the best in them, special competitive presentation sessions are organized for students and young fellows. The best poster presentation and as well as oral presentations are awarded. Since 1999, IACR has instituted essay competition, which is open to postgraduate students and research scholars from Indian universities and institutions. The best essay is published in IACR newsletter. The association also organizes cancer awareness programs to benefit the common people. IACR also has local chapters which organize various workshops and symposia in their locality focused on latest developments and technologies in the field of cancer research. The number of IACR members, life members, are increasing every year, and we have plenty of new overseas members joining this association. IACR membership will connect you to its members around the world who are invited in associations programs, who are involved in associations programs, enabling the timely scientific information to be exchanged. Other than life membership, IACR offers student membership, annual membership, and overseas membership. As cancer researchers, we care for the most deserved and contribute by serving the society through research. Open international forums like IACR will bring the inspired people from varying professional spheres together, thus ensuring that our research remains in the cutting edge. With immense pleasure, I invite you to take part in our endeavors to prevent cancer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Srinivas, and also thank you for letting us know how IACR is positively impacting the research endeavors of scholars and young researchers, and also contributing towards social development. I now invite Professor Subrajit Biswas, convener, IACR 2022 from Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, Noida, to kindly give us a briefing of the conference.
Good evening, respected all dignitaries, and I am not taking individuals' names. So better to say respected my teachers, advisors from Amity, IACR organization, as well as participants and delegates from India as well as abroad. And combating cancer, biology to therapy to drug resistance. This is the central message this year 2022 Conference of Indian Association of Cancer Research, hosting by our Amity Institute of Molecular Medicine and Stem Cell Research. In this 4th day, hope all of you will enjoy the intersession. We have already started the program virtual platform with a Zoom link, which is also linking with the YouTube to display all over the world. We have divided our program in general and the parallel session. And general session includes the welcome, opening session, plenary lecture, panel discussion, inaugural session, where we are now. We'll conclude today with a special convocation session where IACR-2022 is giving honorary doctorate to Professor Robert Winberg, already present with us, and who is a world-renowned figure who investigated the 3 broad questions related to the cancer, origin and spread of cancer, that is metastasis, stemness and state of cancer, and epithelial mesenchymal transition. And tomorrow on 3rd March, we have another special convocation session for honorary degree for the Professor Meir, renowned for the cancer genome discovery. General session also include the awards, presentation, public lecture, keynotes, lectures. Apart from that, several industry personals assembled here physically and virtually. Today, I just want to give an important message on combating cancer. Not we shall overcome someday. We already overcome COVID-19 resistance on cancer conference. As mentioned by today morning, our gene guru, not only the world-renowned geneticist, Professor Parsumudrinda sir, we are missing IACR conference for last 2 years after the Trivandrum. Here we assembled more than 700 participants online and online. And dear all, my respected teacher, advisor, students, or current era academicians, the hybrid mode conference, seminar, symposium will normal practice maybe in the future days. We made it like a combination therapy or translational therapy without side effect, with safe distance in the whole world in this single platform. I'm just finishing our vision from our honorable founder, President Sir Ashok Chauhan, sir, create opportunities via innovative determination. That is COVID. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Viswas. Dr. W. Selvamurthy is presently working with Amity University as President, Amity Science, Technology and Innovation Foundation and Director General for Amity Directorate of Science and Innovation and Chair Professor for Life Sciences. He is also designated as Chancellor, Amity University, Chhattisgarh. Dr. Selvamurthy did his Master's in Human Physiology from Christian Medical College, Vellore, and Doctorate from Delhi University and Doctorate of Science from Bangalore in 2006. He was also awarded DSc from 5 universities in recognition of his outstanding research and development contributions to life sciences. Dr. Selvamurthy has served Defense Research and Development Organization, Government of India for 40 years, in which all the health-related life science research technologies were developed and inducted in armed forces for keeping health and efficiency of soldiers even in extreme operational environment. With these words, I welcome Dr. W. Selvamurthy, Chancellor, Amity University, Chhattisgarh, and President ASTEF for his welcome address.
Very good evening to each and every one of you. First of all, I want to place on record our gratitudes to the great society, the Indian Association for Cancer Research, for hosting this, for making us host this particular event. So I want to thank the society office bearers, the president, the general secretary, and all office bearers for this great honor and privilege which you are giving to Amity to host this 41st, the annual conference of the IACR. I was just listening to some of the deliberations in the morning and also the panel discussion. And I was also partly attending the general body meeting where I could see the health of the society. It's actually having 500 members. They're all very distinguished members. When I looked at the directory, some of them, they're very, very distinguished, like Partha sitting here. And so this is a society which is highly professional, and also it is having a ramification of its impact on the researchers, both the senior and the youngsters. So I must compliment the society for this strong root and good culture you have created across the globe for cancer research. So let's give a big clap to this society. Amity University, the host which is organizing this event, let me just give a glimpse of the host so that you all should know where you are. Today we have 11 universities in India, and this is founded by Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, the founder president, who himself is an innovator, scientist, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. So he established this. Today, the number is 11 universities in India, 18 campuses abroad, 28 schools with 185,000 students, 10,000 faculties, 5,000 PhD scholars. This is the Amity universe that Chauhan has created. It is ably led by young dynamic leaders. The chancellor you see on the screen, London School of Economics, a product of London School of Economics. We have Dr. Asim Chauhan, a product of Wharton Business School. Mr. Amol Chauhan, a product of Harvard. So this is the governance of this whole group, is by elite, educated, and also the professional people who govern this Amity group. That's how you see the exponential growth in the last 16 years. It is a great exponential growth. Today we have 26,000 research publications in journals like Lancet, Nature Medicine, Science, New England Journal of Medicine, and also we have in Royal Society of Chemistry, Advanced Materials, Material Horizon, The Cell, all these top journals our Amitians publish, Amity researchers. We have 1,660 patents today. 1660 is the total number of patents the last about 10 years. So that shows a great indicator of research and innovation culture in Amity Group. And we were awarded the #1 top academic institution in the country for patents and commercialization. This was given just 6 months ago by Mr. Piyush Goyal from the Government of India, Ministry of Commerce. So this is one indicator that Amity is a research and innovation-driven university. Not only that, we have commercialized our product. 18 technologies have been transferred to the industry. So all our projects culminate in terms of either solving a problem of the society, or it culminates in a product, technology, or a process development. So this is the philosophy with which all the research happens here. And also we have kept sustainability and inclusivity so that our products are accessible, technologies are affordable, accessible. So frugality as well as the sustainability is the common denominator in our research. Now coming to cancer, Amity University today has a very strong cancer cluster. We have the father of HPV sitting here, human papilloma virus, Dr. B.C. Das, who worked with the Nobel laureate in Germany on HPV, who was awarded Nobel Prize in HPV. And then he brought that here to India. And he worked on this HPV, human papilloma virus, which causes cancer cervix. And then he created a big group. Today in Amity, we have a strong research cluster on cancer. In all our campuses, most of the campuses where we have biotechnology, life sciences, cancer is a very strong research group. He has almost all forms of cancer, starting from cancer cervix, breast, oral, buccal, and head and neck, and also liver cancer, pancreatic cancer. So you name anything, this is being done here in Amity. So he created that school of researchers, both PhD scholars, faculties, created a strong cancer cluster. So rightly, the ACBR, the Association of the Indian Association of Cancer Research has selected Amity because of the strong presence of the scientists over here. Then he created the molecular medicine and stem cell research to work on cancer, because he created a big institute here, which has got excellent facilities. He established fax machine to look at the cells, and he created stem cell culture facility here. So here it's happening that cancer stem cell research. He's not attacking cancer, he's attacking the cancer stem cell, so that you will not have the recurrence of the disease again after surgical removal, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, there won't be recurrence. So he's working on that. What else is happening in cancer here in Amity? First is we are looking at early diagnosis. We have a very strong leads in biomarkers, and also we have omic studies, that is genomics, proteomics, lipidomics. Omic study is also one of the strong forte for cancer early diagnosis. And we are also looking at particularly the diagnostics, early diagnostics, and also field diagnostics. We are looking at early screening, like for example, mammography. Can we use infrared thermograph so that once you use this, doubtful cases, subject them to mammography. So that kind of research. Then we have also used artificial intelligence in cancer diagnosis. What we did, we had a lot of images of the cervical cancer, pap smear. So these images, we used the artificial intelligence, pattern recognition to look at the susceptible cases, and then you can subject them for detailed diagnosis. So we have used artificial intelligence in early picking up the cases of cancer cervix. This is another area Amity has contributed. Then Dr. Das himself is working on a very important initiative to integrate allopathic medicine and traditional medicine together. What he's doing is to develop a triple conjugate, a known anti-tumor agent coupled with curcumin and folate. Folate gives the signature of cancer stem cell, takes this drug conjugate to the cancer stem cell. Then it sensitizes the cancer stem cell membrane to take the drug inside. And curcumin also neutralizes some of the adverse effect of the chemotherapeutic agent. So he is able to make a conjugate. Very, very difficult to make a triple conjugate. A synthetic agent, a natural product, and then a signature folate. They have developed in silico modeling, then went into synthetic chemistry to synthesize this conjugate, undertook the in vitro studies, in vivo. Today, that drug is positively getting into maybe the preclinical safety trials is being done. So we will have this drug very soon. So this is a very important integration of allopathic and the modern medicine together. We also have a group on cancer epidemiology in Amity, cancer epidemiology, and also cancer prevention, chemo prevention of cancer. So we are looking at diets, lifestyle, pollution, epigenetic factors. How does it influence the carcinogenesis? And then how do we prevent them? So cancer prevention is a focus in Amity. Now, I want to tell, before I conclude, 2-3 things. One is, we have worked on psychoneuroimmunology for cancer. Because once a breast cancer patient, imagine that once a breast cancer patient is diagnosed breast cancer, the type of stress, perceived stress the patient will undergo, anxiety, so state anxiety, trait anxiety, all this will go up. So the person is then high anxious. Not only the cancer patient, spouses, caregivers, in a system, they are all influenced. So we measure the perceived stress of the patient and the caregivers. Then we also looked at the neural axis, sympathoadrenal axis, sympathetic activity. Then we also measured adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol to look at the neural axis. Then we looked at the immune system, CD4, CD8, NK cell, PHA. So we did a multivariate analysis to look at how do you predict the prognosis or the progression of the disease. We did a multivariate analysis, the coping style of the patients, the social support, emotional support the patient receives from the environment, spouses and caregivers. Then we made the message which came out of the study is that besides giving the chemotherapy, radiotherapy and other treatment, you should give psychotherapy. Then the prognosis will be better, because many of the problems are related to the psychological stress the patient undergoes. So let us not only look at the molecular level, look at the man, the patient. So in this, the psychotherapy becomes a very, very important component of the medical management of our cancer patients. This is one study. The second is, I was involved when I was in DRDO, a drug which has gone to as a radiosensitizer, which is now produced by Reddy's laboratory. Just 2 minutes. Reddy's laboratory. This is 2-deoxy-D-glucose, which some of you might have heard, developed by INMAS, where I was director, Institute of Nuclear Medicine and Life Sciences, and also as the DG, Life Sciences in DRDO. I promoted this activity. The simple philosophy of this drug is that 2-deoxy-glucose is an analog of glucose. It can enter the cell, but cannot give energy to that cell. So once you give before radiotherapy, the 2DG, there's a competition for normal glucose and the analog glucose, 2DG, to enter the cancer cell, but also the normal cell. So what happens, cancer cell being hyperactive as well as hungry for energy, it takes more of 2DG as compared to the normal cell. So in the process, you can optimize the radiation, intensity of radiation in such a way, at that dose, it kills the sensitized, weaker cancer cell and preserving the normal cell. So this is what is the drug which we developed. It has gone through all the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and also transferred. First, this is the first Indian new drug cleared by ICMR. This we are very proud. And now this drug has been also marketed by Reddy's laboratory. This is given to the patient before radiotherapy. And this was repurposed for 2DG, for COVID. You must have known, because it's a similar analogous situation that the virus is very active, multiplying, needs more energy. Switch off the energy by 2DG so that your prognosis of the patient will be better. This is what is our research, which happens here in Amity. Finally, the last message is connect with each other. This is a forum where we would like to collaborate with you. Amity would like to partner with you, collaborate with you. And so we would like to be contributing to your mission in your organization. So we will be delighted to work with you. And also the next thing is outcome. Founder President Dr. Chauhan, he has created a culture. Whatever we do in Amity must have a fruitful outcome for all the members of the society, the researchers who are attending, and also the very senior scientists, Professor Robert Weinberg, who is attending. So all this should culminate in an outcome for you, outcome for Amity. And that should be sustainable, not that you have come here and then left. So we would like to have that lifelong connectivity with you. This is the philosophy, Dr. Chauhan, which you see on the screen. Founder President, welcome, Founder President. See you. I am just telling you your culture, what you have created in Amity University. And so this mission outcome, let us look for a revolutionary outcome. Outcome is always there. But once in Amity, we would like to have impactful, memorable, long-lasting outcome. So that should be, this conference should lead to specific recommendation, show the path, trajectory in which researchers should undertake. Not just only understand the disease, what is the solution for it? How do we prevent? How do we treat and manage these conditions? This is what is the final message I want to give to the members of the society. And I'm sure it will happen in this. So once again, compliments to you, Dr. Das. I must say just 1 minute about Dr. Das. Das is an outstanding, distinguished scientist of our country. We are proud of in cancer biology. He has done innumerable research contributions, and not only in HPV, all types of cancer. He has created a group and also the facilities. Now we are looking for a drug to be given, a solution to be given. It could be in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, but let us look at this. Otherwise, we will understand the molecule, the carcinogenesis, we will be understanding publishing papers, but let us find a solution. Let us give a solution, even in phased manner, but it should reach the patient and benefit and save the lives of the people. As I said, second largest killer, and maybe in India, one of the largest killers besides the cardiovascular disease. So if so, we must give a solution. That's the final message. We will all be keenly looking forward to that outcome, the revolutionary outcome, which I mentioned from the deliberations here, looking at clear roadmap that who should do what. Let us consortium, let us connect together. Because the Chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan, you saw in the screen, He says, together with you all, that Amity will be able to contribute to solve the problems of the society, including cancer. My best wishes to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Selvamurthy, as always, for giving all our participants who have joined both offline, who are here both offline and have joined us online on various research endeavors that Amity is doing in the area of cancer research. And I'm sure all our audience would have taken great benefit out of your message. And as Dr. Selvamurthy said, together we can, so we should. Thank you so much, sir. Professor Dr. Balwinder Shukla is our Vice Chancellor at Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, Noida, who is a PhD from Queen's University, UK, with 3 decades of rich scholarly experience in industry and academia. Dr. Shukla is a professor on entrepreneurship, leadership, and IT, and is, as I said, Vice Chancellor at Amity University, Uttar Pradesh. She has been one of the key team members spearheading and instrumental in the exponential growth of Amity Group engaged in higher education. She is on the advisory board of many companies and is a member of several professional bodies and is closely associated with many CSR projects. Dr. Shukla is a strategist, institutional builder, mentor, and an inspirational leader and relationship builder, along with being an avid researcher, teacher, trainer, and entrepreneurial leader with her specialities, which include strategic management, resource-based strategy, business restructuring, CRM, automation of process, and systems creating and scaling up new businesses, change management, growth strategies, organization turnaround, and entrepreneurial leadership, to name a few. May I now request most humbly our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Balwinder Shukla, to kindly deliver her inaugural address.
Most respected Honorable Founder President, sir, Honorable Chancellor, the Conference Chair, Professor Partha M. Majumdar, the General Secretary, Dr. Priya Srinivas, my colleagues, Dr. Selvamurthy ji, Dr. B.C. Das, all the participants from across the globe. What a great day that we are having a discussion in the 41st Annual International Conference of Indian Association for Cancer Research, which is the second deadly cause of the mortality of worldwide, and for which we need the solution for the longevity of the human being. We have seen that the body immune system is a very powerful force that is constantly fighting the diseases to keep us healthy. But cancer after works its own way to enter into the body of the human being. Despite various advances in the medical technology or the medical infrastructure, the graph in India for the cancer is continuing growing, and therefore it becomes even more important that various issues which are related to the cancer be addressed to improve the cancer therapy. And what I understand that there are the various challenges across the world, which includes the lack of awareness and education, limited access to primary, preventive, and early detection of services, coupled with delays in diagnosis and effective treatment. And this conference is extremely important, which aims to provide an insight into general overview of the most advanced, basic, and applied cancer research and therapies, as well as newly proposed methods which will be discussed underlying their impact as innovative anti-cancer strategies. Our Honorable Founder President, long time back, as his vision to change the world through research and innovation and contribute to the nation building, has established very advanced Amity Institute of Molecular Medicine and Stem Cell Research, AMSR, under the leadership of great scientist Dr. B.C. Das. And since this center has been established, Dr. Das and team from the center as well as from the other institutions have been doing the research to find the solutions, and especially in the area of stem cell, which will be helpful in the addressing the cancer issues. So I'm extremely thankful to the Indian Association for Cancer Research for collaborating with the Amity University for this 41st Annual International Conference at Amity University. We are truly delighted to host this conference in the hybrid mode. And this conference, as Honorable Founder President have always said, that whatever the activity you do, is first the outcome need to be decided. What we are going to achieve from this conference, so that it's not the 3 days gala event, but it is the beginning of long-term associations in the research and innovation, which are aligned with the global and the national priorities, where the collaborative research take place between the scientists. So the next conference when happens, we can discuss and deliberate what all the outcomes are of previous conference, and from here, where we go the next. And this is the research is not the short-term goal, it is the long-term goal, but in between, measuring the outcomes is extremely important. And our Honorable Chancellor has always focused, and that through education and research, we will together change the world. And the cancer is such an issue that we need to work together, develop the synergy, and find the solution to eradicate this deadly disease. And therefore, the research collaboration are extremely important. And I'm sure, under the leadership of Dr. B.C. Das, Dr. Silvamurthy, in Amity, and all the dynamic researchers of Amity Education Group, the 11 university and the more university will be coming in times, how the researcher from Amity Education Group, one side, and the researcher and scientists, the members of Indian Association of Cancer Research can work together, where we find the solution and we feel that, yes, we have jointly contributed to the humanity. We have jointly contributed to the nation building. We have jointly contributed to change the world. So with this objective, with this goal, I'm sure that the 3 days, this intense research conference, which is being held at Amity University and online, will surely bring those results. And Dr. Das, will be presenting the report, the outcome report. And I'm sure that it will give the happiness to everybody, along with the roadmap for future. And that's what the vision is, our Honorable Founder President, that we set the roadmap, that what we will be achieving in 1 year time, 6 months time, 2 years time, or the 3 years time, and which can be measured, because what cannot be measured, that cannot be achieved. So measurement is very, very important. With this, once again, I would like to thank our Honorable Founder President for giving his time and being part of this conference. Sir, it's your blessings that today this conference is being held. Honorable Chancellor, I thank you so very much that for guiding us and supporting at every moment. And my special thanks to Dr. B.C. Das, who has worked very hard for this conference day and night. Many times I called Dr. Das, where are you? I'm working with my team for the conference. So that's the passion and dedication of Dr. Das. And when people work with the dedication and passion, results bound to come. And I could see that passion in Dr. Priya Srinivasan, the General Secretary of this conference. I see that passion in our Dr. Partha Majumdarji, National Science Chair, for this conference, and I'm sure this conference is going to bring great results. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for your motivational words. And as ma'am said, this conference should act as a platform where scientists can come together, collaborate, invent, and innovate. Dr. Atul Chauhan is president of the non-for-profit Amity Education and Research Group and chancellor of Amity University, Uttar Pradesh. His vision is to create centers of thought leadership across the world, where faculty, scientists, and students can explore and expand the frontiers of knowledge. A dynamic world leader in education who inspires the youth of the world with his motivational stances and futuristic goals. Honorable Chancellor is an epitome of youth leadership. He is of the strong conviction that educational technology blended with modern-day science and technology, coupled with research and innovation, will create a knowledge-based society. Amity University bears testimony to his vision, a compelling commitment to excel, and an untiring zeal to scale new heights. I request, most humbly, Dr. Atul Chauhan, Chancellor, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, and President RBEF to kindly share his visionary thoughts. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pooja. Let me say what a delight it is for all of us at Amity to have our conferences start once again on campus, though in hybrid mode. But I'm so happy to see so many brilliant scientists from across the country and the world who have congregated at our Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, Noida campus. We had the opportunity, as the camera panned across the audience, to see so many of you. And let me welcome each one of you who has traveled all this way to be part of this conference at our campus. What you are contributing to the field of science, what you are contributing to humanity is second to none. We all heard the importance of research in the field of cancer. It is alarming to hear the statistics, how this disease is spreading, especially in our country. And I think every scientist who is working in this field, and we know that over so many decades, so much resource has gone all over the world, but we as a society, as humanity, still have a long way to eradicate cancer from our world. And it is on the shoulders of some of the great leaders who have spoken and who will be speaking in this conference. But I would say it is because of the confidence we have in the brilliance of our young scientists from our country and from around the world that we have this positive confidence that we will be able to achieve what may look unfathomable. But we all look forward to that stage in our human cycle where cancer will be a non-entity. For that, I would like to congratulate the Indian Association for Cancer Research for the human service you are doing to this field. I was so happy to hear how your association was established, that now you have 500 members. and the great work that you are doing at the grassroots level to bring together some of the great scientists in the field. But not only that, but also how to propagate in the young students, even at school level, at university level, so that they build an interest to enter into the field of cancer research. I think the philosophy that you have as an association, and I congratulate Dr. Partha Majumdar ji, Dr. Priya Srinivasan, and all the members and leaders of the association for what you're doing. Your philosophy matches with the philosophy with which our honorable founder, Dr. Ashok Chauhan ji, established the Amity Foundation to nurture young human beings, to bring together some of the greatest scientists from around the world with one mission: to see how we can transform society and make society a better place. And that is why today we are so happy that under the leadership of our Dr. B.C. Das, the Amity University, together with the Indian Association for Cancer Research, is able to organize such a large conference with some of the greatest scientists from around the world. Dr. Das, let me congratulate you, and let me once again, as Dr. Selvamurthy was saying, reiterate that as a foundation, as a university, how proud and privileged we have to have a great scientific leader and administrator like Dr. Das as part of our system. This was the vision of our founder, Dr. Chauhan, right from the beginning when we established Amity, and as was told, what started with one university has now grown to 11 universities and campuses across 15 countries with 185,000 students and tens of thousands of faculty members and scientists. But the vision of Dr. Chauhan was to bring together great scientific leaders like Dr. Das, like Dr. Selvamurthy, whom you have all heard, and give them the freedom that to build the best facilities, to bring together some of the best young minds in the scientific field, to create something extraordinary, transformatory. And this experiment with which Dr. Chauhan started so many years ago has borne so much fruit, where under the leaders of Dr. Das, we have great scientists like Dr. Biswas, who is the convener of this conference, Dr. Manoj Garg, Dr. Dhruv Kumar, and so many people who are part of the team of Dr. B.C. Das. And Dr. Das, let me tell you that we have interacted so many times with everyone who is part of your cluster and your team, and everyone is absolutely brilliant. And we are so proud, Dr. Das, once again, for what you have achieved for Amity, but not only for Amity, but what you are achieving in the field of cancer biology, and for having organized this conference today. As Dr. Shukla, our Vice Chancellor, was saying, you have been organizing with a great passion, with a great resolve, without which this would not have been possible. And I think today, for everyone who is active in the field of cancer biology and cancer research, there could have been no greater a person to give the keynote address today than Professor Robert Weinberg, who is the Daniel K. Ludwig Professor for Cancer Research at MIT. Professor Weinberg, it is a great honor, a great privilege for the Amity University and for everyone, for all the thousands of scientists who are listening, going to be listening to you, to hear your words of wisdom. What you have achieved in the field of cancer research is extraordinary and phenomenal. But after having read about you, I think what was the most striking, that what you are very proud of, is that in addition to your individual research that you have achieved, you have mentored some of the most eminent scientists in the field of cancer research. And I think this is the philosophy and the vision of our founder, that together with great scientists, we want to nurture the future leaders in this field. And Professor Weinberg, your words will go a long way in motivating the young scientists who are part of this conference to work in this field. With this, our gratitude to our founder, Dr. Chauhan, for the vision of Amity, to all the scientists who are participating in this conference. You are already one family with the Indian Association for Cancer Research, but feel like Amity as your family and work together. I think in the field of science and research, there is nothing more transformative than collaborative working. And I'm sure great outcomes will come from this conference. So with that, all the best, Dr. Das, to you and your team, and to all the scientists involved. And Professor Weinberg, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I trust that you can hear me. You can hear me properly. Is that the case?
Yes. Yes, Professor Weinberg, we can hear you. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your inspirational words. Thank you so much for being a part of this conference. It really means a lot to us. I would now request Dr. Manoj Garg, who is the Joint Organizing Secretary, IACR, to kindly give us an introduction of our keynote speaker, Professor Robert A. Weinberg, who is the Daniel K. Ludwig Professor from Daniel K. Ludwig Professor for Cancer Research, Whitehead Institute, MIT, USA. I would request Dr. Manoj Garg to kindly take over, please.
Good evening, all the respected dignitaries, eminent scientists, delegates, participants, and guests. With the blessing of Honorable Founder President, Sir Ashok K. Chauhan ji, Dynamic Chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan ji, and Asim Chauhan ji, we are very privileged to have none other than Professor Robert A. Weinberg with us for keynote lecture. It is indeed a great opportunity for all of us to have you, sir, here. Good morning, sir. It will be very early morning for you there. Professor Robert Weinberg is more famously known as Bob Weinberg, and he is a founding member of Whitehead Institute for Biomedical Research and Daniel K. Ludwig Professor for Cancer Research at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, USA. He is the founding director of Ludwig Cancer Center at MIT, USA. Professor Weinberg is world-renowned cancer biologist and known across the globe, along with his colleague, for isolating and discovering the first human cancer-causing gene, the RAS oncogene, and the famous tumor suppressor gene, RV1 retinoblastoma, who have changed the face of the cancer research at the molecular level. Because of that, we are able to diagnose many of the cancer and able to give the solution. Sir, you have been awarded with several prestigious awards and honor. If I talk about your achievement and award, it will probably take a day or two. So to name few, Albert Einstein World Award, the Golden Plate Award from American Academy, National Medal of Science, Keogh Medical Prize, Breakthrough Prize in Life Science for your groundbreaking and path-breaking discoveries in the field of genetic and molecular basis of cancer. Sir is the member of several international academies. To name few, National Academy of Science, USA, National Academy of Medicine, USA, Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, and Fellow of American Academy of Art and Science, USA, American Philosophical Society, USA. Sir, you have published more than 500 papers in most reputed journals, including Science, Nature, Cell, JAMA, Journal of Clinical Oncology, and etc., etc. Sir, you are the highest cited scientist in the world in the field of cancer, and you have received more than million of citation and comment for your work that you have published. Sir is not only a great scientist, but also a famous writer and author and editor of 6 books. He has written 2 editions of more comprehensive book on the cancer, which is the biology of cancer. And because of that, sir, you are not famous only in the scientific society, but among all the students who read this book. So you are known to each and everyone in this hall and outside this hall and throughout the globe, sir, for your achievement. The another book which sir have written is the Gene and Cancer Biology, which is co-authored with the Professor E. Vermus, the former director of NIH, USA. Sir has founded a biopharmaceutical company known as Verastem, which is focused on discovering and developing the drug to treat the cancer by targeting the cancer stem cell, which is the theme of our 41st IACR conference, which perfectly matches with the vision of the whole world. Sir has not only made exceptional contribution to the cancer research, but also trained generation of scientists dedicated to furthering this critical work and take forward to have a fruitful outcome in the future. Sir, your contribution not only changed the face of the cancer research, but also the cancer diagnosis, medicine, and the current treatment. Most importantly, sir, you are not only a great scientist, but also a great human being too. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Professor Weinberg for his talk.
I'm most flattered by that wonderful and flattering invitation. At the same time, I was very flattered to be invited by Professor Budev Das and organized by Dr. Amit Dutt to participate in this meeting. At the same time, I would like to recognize our hosts here at Amity, including Professor Balram Bhargava, Doctors Ashok, Atul and Ashim Chauhan, Professor Balvinder Shukla, Dr. Selvamurthy, all associated with our hosts, Amity University in Noida, UP. This is a great pleasure for me, and I say on that occasion, Namaste, Namaskar, Assalamu alaikum, Vanakkam. Very good to be here. I would like to spend time today discussing the research in my laboratory that has led to the realization of some important, to my mind, fundamental mechanisms that explain the aggressive nature of neoplastic cells. And with that in mind, I would get moving directly. I trust that my slides have appeared properly on your screen. Good. Okay. So
please make it in full screen, Professor Weinberg.
Yes. Okay, will do.
Thank you so much.
That's better? Good?
Perfect.
Oh, perfection is my goal, but never achieved. Okay, so we know that the process of forming a human tumor is one of multiple steps. Here we see it above in the context of colorectal cancer in the colon. And we also know that already in 1989, the laboratory of Bert Vogelstein and colleagues began to associate these multiple distinct steps with the acquisition of specific somatically mutated alleles. Some of them oncogenes, some of them tumor suppressor genes, which are perturbed in various ways by these acquired somatic mutations. Some might interpret these mutant alleles as markers of different stages of tumor progression, but we now realize, more to the point, that they're actually driving the process. A whole series of these somatic mutations. And one of the key themes of my speech today is, independent of these somatic mutations, how important are non-genetically controlled programs in determining the biology of cancer cells and thus tumors. We know in the case of colorectal cancer, there's a whole succession of mutations. I've just showed you one indication of that. The first one, obviously, most often perturbs the beta-catenin pathway. And here there are at least 4 alternative somatic mutations that may succeed in doing so. The next set of changes perturbs the RAS-RAF PI3 kinase signaling pathway. The third one, TGF-beta signaling pathway, and finally P53. And so we begin to realize that the formation of human tumors requires the collaboration of a whole series of distinct somatic mutations. Above here, we can see the results of William Hahn, 1999, in which we were able to determine that the transformation of a human cell actually requires the introduction of 5 distinct genetic elements which perturb a concomitant number of pathways. By the way, I would mention in passing that this contrasts with the transformation of mouse cells that require only 2 such changes, beginning to suggest certain limitations about the biology of mouse cells in terms of their ability to model faithfully human tumors. Still, the notion that there are these multiple somatic mutations occurring during the course of colorectal cancer pathogenesis is explained in part by the need to have these collaborating oncogenes and inactivated tumor suppressor genes participate in tumor formation. And now I return to my theme, which is the question of how important are non-genetic elements in determining the trajectory of human cancer. And when I say non-genetic, I refer to epigenetic programs. Here's one dramatic demonstration that non-genetic elements are critically important in participating in the formation and influencing the biology of human tumors. This work was done in the mouse, where 2 closely related cell types within the lung of a mouse were mutated with an identical set of introduced oncogenes. These 2 cell types, pulmonary cell types, had the identically introduced somatic mutations, but as we see here from the analysis of the transcriptomes of these 2 cell types, that even though they had the identical set of genetic elements, certain genes were up and certain genes were down in some tumors, in one class of tumors versus another class of tumors. And that begins to suggest to us an important principle, which is that the biology and the transcriptomes of these tumors were in part influenced by the normal cells of origin from which they arose. That is, we imagine that there's a differentiation program of the normal epithelium, and that as cells progress one step after the other to the formation of the primary tumor, that ultimately this differentiation program continues to influence the biology of the derived carcinoma cells, including possibly the proclivity of the primary tumor cells indicated down here, eventually to invade and metastasize. And I just mentioned that a totally unknown area in current cancer pathogenesis research is the influence of the differentiation programs of the last normal cells of origin, the continuing influence on the biology of the derived neoplastic cell types. We know almost nothing about this, and as you can imagine, the acquisition of these somatic mutations do not really erase the continuing ongoing influence of the differentiation program of the normal cell of origin on the biology of these cell types. But in fact, I want to switch now to another non-genetic process, as I will argue, the process by which primary carcinomas acquire the ability to invade and metastasize. This single step indicated up here is in fact can be broken down, as Fiedler demonstrated some years ago, into a whole series of sub-steps that in aggregate are termed the invasion metastasis cascade and indicated here. Primary tumor formation, local invasion, intravasation, translocation through the hematogenous route, extravasation into the parenchyma of distant tissues, and the formation of micrometastatic deposits, the latter of which on rare occasion actually spawn a macroscopic metastasis, which can be life-threatening. This last step, which is called colonization, is in fact, fortunately, very inefficient, and therefore it's only on rare occasion that a micrometastasis succeeds in spawning a macroscopic mutation, macroscopic metastatic growth. clearly, the complexity of this invasion metastasis cascade provokes the question of how all of these distinct biological capabilities are required. Does one need additional somatic mutations beyond those that were initially required in order to form the primary tumor? Or are there alternative mechanisms that can be invoked to explain this complex process? And indeed, I will argue there are. Here's one manifestation of the alternative explanation. Here are experimentally transformed human mammary epithelial cells, and they've been implanted in an immunocompromised mouse host. And what we see here is that these implanted cells have been stained with an epithelial marker in red for cytokeratin, and conversely, a vimentin marker seen in green. The green cells derive from the initially epithelial red cells, the green cells expressing the mesenchymal marker vimentin. And this is already very peculiar because here we have cells that have profoundly switched their phenotype from an epithelial to a mesenchymal state. We can see this occurring in this other visualization in which we have a tongue of the carcinoma cells that initially were epithelial by virtue of their expression of cytokeratins. And at the outside rim of this tongue of carcinoma cells, these cells have shut down their pre-existing epithelial marker, cytokeratin, and here on another tongue now express instead vimentin, a mesenchymal marker. And this happens, as you can see, in direct juxtaposition with the recruited mouse stroma. And as a consequence, we begin to impute to this process a series of interactions between the stroma and the carcinoma cells. Here's one manifestation of this. Here we have human carcinoma cells indicated here, and the cells at the edge of these carcinomas can interact and signal directly with nearby stromal cells, including in this case mesenchymal stem cells and fibroblasts. And by releasing interleukin-1 in this work of Ann Lee, these carcinoma cells elicit a response from the stromal cells, a reciprocal response, which then impinges on the carcinoma cells and induces the latter to undergo a shift from an epithelial to a mesenchymal state. That is the manifestation of the process of epithelial mesenchymal transition. And this process was actually first enunciated by Elizabeth Hay already in the mid-1980s. And this epithelial mesenchymal process, EMT, it's a complex, multifaceted process which involves changes in not only the morphology of the carcinoma cells and their biology, but also a whole series of molecular markers. Here are indicated 6 or 7 of these changes, but the truth is that more than 400 genes are altered on occasion of the activation of the previously silent EMT program. And we now begin to raise the question of how this actually plays itself out. Importantly, as I will emphasize later, the EMT program does not operate as a binary switch that pushes cells from an epithelial to mesenchymal state, but indeed its manifestations are much more complex. And here I throw out another provocative notion, and that is that this epigenetic program, which does not involve the mutation, the somatic mutation of genes, may actually be responsible for the majority of the distinctive traits of malignant cancer cells, not the somatic mutations that they have sustained. This EMT program is choreographed by a whole series of transcription factors. They're sometimes called EMTTFs. I indicate some of them here as they are expressed transiently in various stages of embryogenesis in various metazoan phyla. And we now realize that these transcription factors and the EMT program were first invented likely at the onset of metazoan evolution, more than 600 million years ago, and that these transcription factors, which remain represented in almost unaltered form in the genomes of all contemporary metazoa, were critical to embryogenesis of these metazoan embryos, and ultimately are important in other processes as well. This raises the question, among other things that remain unanswered, whether all EMT programs, several of which I'll discuss soon, do they depend on these canonical EMT-inducing transcription factors? Because you'll notice above each of these micrographs the name of the master transcriptional regulator that is responsible for choreographing these various changes. Do these EMT transcription factors collaborate or conspire with one another? Does the ability to experimentally induce the expression of these EMTTFs actually misrepresent the actions of these transcription factors in spontaneously arising tumors? And what rules govern how combinations of heterotypic signals of the sort I showed you before, how these rules act to induce the expression in previously epithelial cells of mesenchymal characteristics? For the moment, I'm going to shift gears now, or switch gears, into what is ostensibly an unrelated topic, that being the topic of stem cells. And here I refer to the work of Mohammed Al-Hajj and Michael Clark, 2004, in which they used fluorescence-activated cell sorting to fractionate populations of cells from, for example, a single mammary carcinoma. Using the two cell surface markers CT24 and 4D4 to do so, they demonstrated that there is a subpopulation of cells which, when implanted in appropriate mouse hosts, they have an extraordinary tumor initiating ability. As few as 200 of these cells can seed in a tumor, whereas in contradistinction, the majority population of these cells, 20,000 of them fail to do so. And that begins to suggest that these two genetically identical cell populations exist in alternative epigenetic states, one having strong tumor initiating capability, the other lacking that. We begin then to invoke a hierarchical organization of the cells within a single tumor, indicated here. And here in another representation of such an effects analysis, we mention the fact that the stem cells, which are in the CD44 high, CD24 low position, they are located up here, whereas the majority non-stem cells in this FACS analysis are located down there. Again, giving stark testimony to the residence of these cells in two alternative phenotypic states. Some years ago, Sendaraimani and Wenjun Guo undertook to pursue the following question. Why they did so, I have no idea, because it did not come from my brain. They asked the question, do the EMT transcription factors influence the residence of cells in the stem versus non-stem cell state? And to do so, they introduced one of two transcription factors, snail on the left and twist on the right, into these cells and asked what the consequences would be of that introduction. And when they then expressed either snail or twist, these two EMT-inducing transcription factors, they noticed, as one might expect, a profound shift in the morphology of the cells in monolayer culture, shifting from epithelial cobblestone to fibroblastic-like cultures. At the same time, they observed a mass migration of cells from the non-stem cell to the stem cell position here in the top left. One should mention the proviso here that while all stem cells are in this minority population in the top left, one cannot say that all of the cells in this minority population are stem cells. That remains to be proven. Still, there are strong correlations between the expression of specific EMT-inducing transcription factors and residence in the stem cell state as detected by tumor initiating capability. That is, the ability to take such cells and introduce them at various dilutions into a mouse host and ask about their tumor initiating capability. Here we see, for example, that these cells that express high levels of the snail EMTTF, 1 in 91 of them can seed in a tumor, whereas in contrast, with the slug high EMTF in these particular populations of cells, only 1 in 72,000 was capable of seeding a tumor, i.e. an 800-fold difference in the expression of these specific transcription factors and their respective ability to seed the formation of a new tumor, beginning to persuade one that there's an association, as one might imagine, between residence in the stem cell state and the expression of these different EMT-inducing transcription factors in the case of carcinoma stem cells. This paradigm extends as well to normal mammary epithelial cells, as visualized here in a cross-section of a mammary duct in a normal mouse. This is a bilayered epithelium, and as we see, cells in the outer or basal layer express constitutively high levels of the slug EMT-inducing transcription factor, which begins to indicate for us that the EMT program plays a role not only in carcinoma pathogenesis and in wound healing, and in inflammation, by the way, but also in the homeostasis of the normal mammary gland. Indeed, we find that the slug EMT-inducing transcription factor is expressed more than 100-fold higher in the basal cells, which are said to be the source of the stem cells in the normal mammary duct and the luminal cells. And one might even wish to test whether these basal cells are actually responsible for the stem cell attributes. And one can test that by doing the following experiment. One can take a population of candidate mammary epithelial cells and implant them in a mammary stromal fat pad. And if one does that with a control population of 10,000 such implanted cells, nothing happens. However, if one exposes these cells transiently to the two EMT-inducing transcription factors, slug and SOX9, turns them on for several days and then shuts them off, weeks later, 6 to 8 weeks later, if one looks at the resulting implanted cells, as few as 100 of the cells that had experienced transiently expression of slug and SOX9, they succeeded in seeding an entire normal mammary ductal tree, indicative of the fact that they were indeed normal mammary stem cells whose entrance into the stem cell state, and thus the ability to seed an entire adult organ, depended on their transient exposure to these two EMT-inducing transcription factors. In fact, we now realize that the expression of the slug EMT-inducing transcription factor is found in the basal cells of a whole series of bilayered epithelia throughout the body, but not in single layered epithelia. And we don't really understand how the stem cell programs of these single layered epithelia are organized. They would not seem to depend in any obvious way on the EMT program. So this raises other questions. Are all the epithelial stem cell programs linked in certain ways to EMT programs, or are there EMT independent stem cell programs? Why, the great mystery, is there an interconnection between the EMT program and the stem cell program, which I will reinforce later? And does the plasticity of EMT programs, which I will discuss momentarily, does that in fact govern the plasticity of movement into and out of stem cell states? If we recognize the fact that stem cells can differentiate into normal transit amplifying cells and more differentiated cells as indicated up here, and we embrace the notion that normal stem cells express an EMT program and highly malignant stem cells, normal stem cells express a stem cell program and highly malignant cells express a stem cell program, then we realize that this simple scheme of one population of stem cells evolving progressively to another population of stem cells oversimplifies the complexity of what is going on. And one concludes that all of the distinct stages, each of the distinct stages of multi-step tumor progression, the stem cells produce their own cohorts of derived transit amplifying cells and more differentiated cells. And so one is forced to draw two-dimensional rather than one-dimensional maps of what proceeds during multi-step tumorigenesis. Moreover, these processes are reversible. Here's by now old work where Christine Chaffer demonstrated that if one takes populations of CD44 low cells, which are by definition non-stem cells, and one propagates them in culture, with the goodness of time, one sees here over to the right that the CD44 low cells generate CD44 high cells, which begins to indicate that one can generate new populations of stem cells de novo, simply by propagating these cells in culture. Here one can see that blown up, where the CD44 low non-stem cells have spontaneously generated CD44 high cells, which are putatively new stem cells. And this conversion rate changes depending on the degree of genetic alteration of these cells. The most highly transformed of these cells transform at a much higher rate per cell generation than the cells that are simply immortalized. And here one sees yet another indication of this. If one takes populations of transformed cells and eliminates the CD44 high stem cells from this population through careful fractionation and implants those cells into a mouse, one sees that this population that had previously been rid of its CD44 high stem-like subpopulation within several weeks generates 20% of CD44 high cells, further reinforcing the notion that we need to take this organizational chart here and show that it's reversible. That is to say, in principle, non-stem cells, indicated here in gray, can create de novo self-renewing stem cells. This has important implications for our visualization and conceptualization of how a multi-step tumorigenesis proceeds, because here one can imagine that one has stem cells early on. They make transit amplifying cells. The transit amplifying cells may actually then de-differentiate into mutant cells, which then seed the population of a new stem cell colony, indicated here as the first step in multi-step tumorigenesis. And this back and forth of non-stem cells generating stem cells also has important implications for the identities of the cells that are the direct targets of mutagenesis, which are far more plausibly these transit amplifying cells, which are much larger in number and have a far higher mitotic activity than this corresponding antecedent stem-like cells. Just another consequence of this realization of the plasticity of these programs. These also have implications for therapy. As you may sense, cancer stem cells represent an imminent danger because they can actually serve as the founders of new metastatic colonies. And so in an ideal world, one would like to eliminate the cancer stem cells, creating a population of just transit amplifying cells and more differentiated derived cells. And with the goodness of time, such a population of cells would actually disappear, yielding a cure, because the source of self-renewal of this tumor had been removed, having eliminated, ideally, through some kind of therapy, the cancer stem cells. But the reality is, I fear, much more complex, because if one eliminates the cancer stem cells through some yet to be developed therapy, then what one finds is one confronts the grim reality that the surviving non-stem cells can regenerate new subpopulations of stem-like cells, recreating the complexity that pre-existed in the primary tumor prior to the elimination of the cancer stem cells. And so in the end, one begins to conclude that one must develop therapies that eliminate both the stem-like cells and the non-stem-like cells within the confines of an individual tumor. One can also demonstrate the causality, the causal role of the EMT program in driving the malignant progression of carcinoma cells. Here's the work of Zuzana Keshkushova and Yasmin Dikok, in which they took these populations of non-metastatic MCF7 RAS human breast cancer cells and exposed them transiently to this pair of EMT-inducing transcription factors, SLUG and SOX9. The original parental population, after growing out for another 10 weeks, generates tumors which have a very smooth edge and are on that basis non-invasive. And in contrast, one sees these cells, which had previously experienced 10 weeks earlier, the EMT program induced by these two induced transcription factors. And here one sees the highly invasive edge of this tumor, where the carcinoma cells are clearly invading into the adjacent layer of stromal cells, in this case adipocytes. Perhaps more relevant and of greater interest is the metastasis forming ability of these tumor cells. The MCF7 RAS cells, as I just maintained, produce essentially no micro or macroscopic metastases. But those cells that are exposed transiently to the combination of SLUG and SOX9, now in a parallel population, they can produce as many as 400 micrometastases, small clusters of disseminated tumor cells, and even 100 macroscopic metastases. And this begins to demonstrate the causal powers of the EMT program in driving metastatic dissemination. Here one can even see that at the invasive edges of carcinoma cells, one sees the activation, in this case, of the snail transcription factor, which may be critically important in driving invasiveness. Here, for example, one sees in the work of Xinye that the snail positive cells represent the great majority of the leader cells in these invasive cohorts of carcinoma cells, indicating that not the entire tumor, but instead its leading edge, which is invading into putatively a nearby stroma, needs the snail EMT-inducing transcription factor in order to invade, whereas the SLUG EMT-inducing transcription factor is incapable of doing so. Of additional interest is the fact that when carcinoma cells invade and metastasize, in this work of Ilaria Malanki, done some years ago in Switzerland, one sees that the mesenchymal cells in a lung tumor, the disseminated metastasized mesenchymal cells, initially represent a high percentage of cells in the metastatic tumor, but with the passage of time, the representation of the more mesenchymal cells declines. And that begins to reveal that when carcinoma cells disseminate, they may require a more mesenchymal phenotype to do so when they physically translocate to distant tissues. However, after the establishment of a metastatic colony, the representation of the more mesenchymal cells decline, indicating that in fact, even though the EMT program can convey cells from a site of primary tumor formation to a distant tissue, becomes counterproductive unless it is reversed in part through the reverse process, which is sometimes called the MET, the mesenchymal epithelial transition, the opposite of the EMT. And this data like these, from other labs as well, begins to indicate that the process of physical translocation of primary carcinoma cells from the site of primary tumor formation into the parenchyma of distant tissues, these steps can all be accomplished by various actions of the EMT program. However, the last step, which represents the adaptation of disseminated tumor cells to a distant microenvironment, to my mind, cannot be under the aegis, under the rubric of the steps that are accomplished by the EMT program. This last step must be a problem that is solved by disseminated carcinoma cells after they land into a distant and therefore foreign tissue. And to my mind, this last step of colonization is the major unsolved step in the process of metastasis. How do carcinoma cells actually succeed in forming metastases in foreign and in principle unfamiliar tissues? And we know that primary carcinomas can metastasize to greater or lesser extents in different tissues, the proclivity to do so being indicated by the breadth of these arrows. Colon carcinoma proceeds to metastasize to the liver, as does pancreatic cancer. Prostate carcinoma has a tendency to metastasize to the bone marrow, as does breast cancer. In the case of colon and pancreatic cancer, one can indicate a trivial reason for this, since via the portal circulation, pancreatic and colonic tumors, primary tumors, empty millions of cells every day directly into the liver via the vena porta. However, this kind of plumbing design cannot be invoked in order to explain why prostate carcinoma cells and breast cancer cells favor formation of bone marrow metastases. And this represents a bit of a mystery. Again, the mystery of why cells from one tissue of origin are more or less successful in succeeding in forming macroscopic metastatic colonies in a distant tissue. Some years ago, Brian Beery developed a new type of marker. I've been talking about CD24 and CD44, and in a population of experimentally transformed human breast cancer cells indicated here, they seem to form one homogeneous population if one uses the two aforementioned cell surface markers, CD24 and CD44. But in contrast, if one uses the alternative cell surface marker, integrin beta 4, also known as CD104, then one can resolve these into a whole series of subpopulations. And this represents an experimentally useful tool of fractionating and stratifying breast cancer cells. Here is one interesting outcome of his work. And here we see this newly chosen marker, integrin beta 4. Cells in one population of his work that expressed high levels of this integrin, 1 in 3,000 of these cells were tumor-initiating cells, as indicated by their ability to seed tumors when implanted into mice. However, in contrast, another subpopulation, which had integrin beta 4 low cell surface expression, here 1 in 750,000 cells was capable of seeding a new tumor. And here we're talking about a 250-fold difference in the relative abilities of tumor seeding ability. And here one can begin now to ask the question how this all relates to the EMT program. Here we could depict the EMT program as starting in the epithelial side and moving over in a continuous spectrum to the mesenchymal side from left to right. And as one does so, and as he examined, one of the first things to happen is E-cadherin goes down, CD44 ends up going up, as does vimentin. These are more mesenchymal markers. P63, a stem cell marker, eventually goes down, as does integrin beta 4. So there's a whole series of steps here. And importantly, the EMT program does not operate as a binary switch, moving cells from the E to the M state at the ends of this pole, but instead operates in gradations and moves cells in more mesenchymal directions, but rarely, if ever, moves cells all the way over to the fully mesenchymal state. And if one looks at the data that I showed you before, one begins to conclude that cancer stem cells, tumor-initiating cells, as judged by their ability to seed tumors in mice, they actually reside in the middle. And cells that have been pushed too far in the mesenchymal direction actually lose tumor-initiating capability, indicative of the fact that cancer stem cells actually have a hybrid epithelial mesenchymal phenotype. And this begins to emphasize that the EMT program not only encodes stemness, but I will mention a whole series of other relevant traits which are relevant clinically to the treatment of cancer and indicated here. Again, here we don't talk about those traits, but simply focus, perhaps arbitrarily, on the stemness traits. And one can, if one uses single-cell RNA sequencing, as Jung did here, demonstrate that there are distinct subpopulations of cells along the epithelial to mesenchymal spectrum. And so one begins to imagine that when cells leave the epithelial state, they move to differing extents in the direction of being more and more mesenchymal, rarely, if ever, becoming fully mesenchymal. And these cells that are quasi-mesenchymal in the middle here, they are in fact critical participants in the formation of cancer stem cells. There are stopping points along this road. And in this case, Jung has found that residence in the epithelial state can be sustained and supported and maintained by a whole series of histone-modifying proteins complexes in the nucleus, in the chromatin, and that if one knocks out some of these histone-modifying complexes in the chromatin, then one destabilizes the residence of the cells in the epithelial state, allowing them to migrate spontaneously into more mesenchymal directions. So one can begin to understand the plasticity of this process through the actions of these histone-modifying complexes. Indeed, we now must recognize that if one looks at a population of tumor cells, they may be scattered across this spectrum of more mesenchymal and more epithelial cells within a single tumor, which obviously complicates our attempts to rationalize how they operate and how to treat these cells. Here, I just want to finish by referring to the work of Anushka Dongre, who was interested in the actions of the EMT program in influencing the responsiveness of tumors to the recently embraced and developed checkpoint immunotherapy. And there are actually two major types that have been employed, anti-PD-1 and PD-L1, which can be blocked with the appropriate monoclonal antibody, and CTLA-4 and anti-CTLA-4, which can also be blocked by the appropriate monoclonal antibody. And these use of these checkpoint immunotherapy blockers have yielded dramatic responses in a subset of human tumors, specifically melanomas, where one gets, in fact, where tumor cells that previously, and patients who were previously doomed to die within a period of less than 2 years, now some of them have durable clinical responses through the use of one or both of these two checkpoint immunotherapies, which allow or unleash the actions of the T cells in attacking the tumor. And this began to provoke the question in her mind of whether the residence of carcinoma cells in the E versus M state, epithelial versus M state, determined the responsiveness of such cells, of carcinoma cells, to checkpoint immunotherapy. This was of great interest because in general, solid human tumors such as carcinoma cells do not respond, at least to date, to checkpoint immunotherapy. And therefore, in order to examine this question, Anushka Dongre, originally I would mention from Mumbai, used cells which are either memory carcinoma cells in syngeneic which are stably resident in either the epithelial or the mesenchymal state, indicated here. And she asked whether these cells, each of which generates a phenotypically epithelial tumor or a phenotypically mesenchymal tumor without shifting its phenotypic state, do they behave different in response to checkpoint immunotherapy? Is the immune microenvironment of these tumors any different? And as she found out, if one looks for immunosuppressive macrophages in the stroma of tumor, then the immunosuppressive macrophages are far higher. Here's one pair of such epithelial versus mesenchymal cell lines. Here's another pair. The immunosuppressive macrophages are far higher in the mesenchymal tumor than in the epithelial tumor. The same can be said here in this analysis, where once again, the mesenchymal tumors attract far higher numbers of immunosuppressive macrophages. The number, conversely, of cytotoxic T cells is much lower in the mesenchymal tumors than in the epithelial tumors. And one can see as well that if one looks at the T cells, the few T cells that succeed in invading into mesenchymal tumors, they have far higher levels of exhaustion, which indicates that even though they may be there, they're biologically inactive in terms of eliminating the tumor. The immunosuppressive regulatory T cells are far higher in the mesenchymal tumors than they are in the epithelial tumors. And moreover, if one looks for the immunosuppressive macrophages, as is done here, if you can see in the top right, they are visualized in red, and there's far higher numbers of immunosuppressive macrophages in the mesenchymal tumor than in the epithelial tumor. And if one looks at the localization, one sees that the immunosuppressive macrophages in the epithelial tumors are kept on the outside. They're not allowed into the tumor. Whereas in contradistinction, if one looks at the mesenchymal tumors, there the immunosuppressive macrophages are welcomed into the mass of the tumor, clearly indicating a profoundly different immune microenvironment, which is only compounded by the fact that the mesenchymal tumors express far lower levels of MHC class 1, which, as you know, is responsible for presenting potentially immunogenic peptides. And so Anushka Dongre undertook, working together with Mohammed Rashidian, what the responses of these tumors were to checkpoint immunotherapy, specifically the anti-CTLA-4 therapy that I mentioned in passing earlier. And what she found was that the epithelial tumors could indeed be kept under control with anti-CTLA-4 checkpoint immunotherapy. Here's the untreated cells, and here are the CTLA-4, anti-CTLA-4 treated cells. In contrast, the tumors formed by the mesenchymal cells were totally resistant. They could not have cared less about the presence or the absence of checkpoint immunotherapy. So here we see a profound difference between mesenchymal and epithelial cells. Obviously, this has implications for how human tumors behave, since the more mesenchymal cells in a carcinoma may be relatively resistant to any application of a checkpoint immunotherapy. She then undertook a very interesting experiment where she mixed populations of mesenchymal carcinoma cells with populations of epithelial carcinoma cells. The two populations retained their phenotypic state while outgrowing in a tumor. And in a situation where 10% of the mixed tumor was represented by admixed mesenchymal cells and 90% of the tumor came from epithelial cells, under this state, in this mixed tumor, these tumors, as indicated here in the green line, behaved as if they were almost entirely mesenchymal cells, indicating that in fact minority populations of mesenchymal carcinoma cells can protect the epithelial majority from attack by this checkpoint immunotherapy. And this begins to suggest a situation in human tumors where there are subpopulations of mesenchymal cells that may serve to protect their epithelial brethren from elimination. Here you can see this kind of segregation of the mesenchymal carcinoma cell, epithelial carcinoma cells, and the mesenchymal carcinoma cells coexisting within the common tumor. And finally, just to finish, she began to look at what the powers were of this mesenchymal subpopulation. How could they protect the epithelial carcinoma cells? And she began to realize that the more mesenchymal carcinoma cells released a series of paracrine factors, and these factors in turn could have important influences on the behavior, on the responsiveness of the nearby epithelial carcinoma cells to checkpoint immunotherapy. Here you see in the lower left an enumeration of these different factors. And what I just mentioned now is if one knocks out the genes for these various factors in the genomes of the more mesenchymal carcinoma cells, one finds that in fact, one of them, indicating CD73, if the carcinoma cells are the mesenchymal carcinoma cells are deprived of CD73, then instead of being totally resistant to elimination by CTLA4 checkpoint blockade, now they can actually be eliminated. So one begins to realize that this protein expressed by the more mesenchymal carcinoma cells, which generates extracellular adenosine, may actually act through its ability to eliminate the more aggressive immunocytes. And if one prevents the mesenchymal carcinoma cells from producing this paracrine signal mediated by CD73, then one can actually protect the nearby epithelial cells. So this is the beginning of an understanding of how the epithelial versus mesenchymal polarization of a carcinoma may be an important determinant of its responses to checkpoint immunotherapy. And here are some of the people who are responsible for this. Even though it's obvious that these are unusually good-looking people, I've been cautioned never, ever to comment on the appearance of my coworkers. Here you see them. And once again, I would like to thank you for having me here. Dhanyavad, Shukriya, and Nandri. Thank you for inviting me to this very interesting and exciting conference.
Thank you so much, Dr. Weinberg, for a very interesting talk and for sharing studies on how cancer spreads and what gives cancer stem cell their unique qualities and molecular players involved in the formation of cancer stem cell and their metastasis. With this, I open the forum for questions. Yes, so one by one, you have to come here and ask your question because it is very difficult for us to hear from where you are sitting. So Dr. Weinberg, there are audiences who have a lot of questions, so we would take the questions one by one. Please identify yourself before asking your question. Thank you so much.
Or if you wish, you can be anonymous.
So Weinberg, sir, it's my pleasure because we are reading your works maybe during from PhD. So it's a great honor you are with us. So anyway, we are keenly watching your talk and listening. And my one question is, you have mentioned about the epithelial EMT program, epithelial mesenchymal transition. And it is obvious that is CD8, that is cytotoxic T cells will going down. On the other hand, suppressor, that is FOXP3, the population will be up. Now in the context, the M2 macrophage population also high here, you have shown that. But in the another context, you also shown the opposite effect, that is EMT, that is MET. In that case, the polarization also has any flexibility, or polarization has also any opposite effect? Only you can answer that.
Yes, indeed. Well, we believe that the EMT is a fully reversible process and that under certain circumstances, cells that have activated the EMT program do not reside in a quasi-mesenchymal state stably, but in the absence of further additional provoking signals may lapse in the opposite direction via an MET back into a more epithelial state, on which occasion they regain their sensitivity to elimination by checkpoint immunotherapy.
Okay, in that case, M1 population will be high?
After the MET, then the epithelial population regenerates, and now one has M1 macrophages rather than immunosuppressive M2 macrophages. Correct.
Thank you, sir. A lot of questions are coming. Yeah.
Hi, Dr. Weinberg. Thanks a lot for this enrichment talk. So I'm Dr. Prakash. I'm a tumor immunologist. And when I was going through your slides, I was recalling my work, which we have done in the DKFZ in Heidelberg. So my two questions to you. Can we differentiate the quality of the stem cell in the patient which are undergone the relapse and the patient which are resistant for the chemotherapy? And if so, is there any message that we can learn from the immune compartment of these patients that is guiding the CSC to behave abnormally?
Well, the fact is that the more mesenchymal carcinoma cells are more resistant to elimination by regular chemo and radiotherapy. As I've just shown you, the more mesenchymal cells are also more resistant to immunotherapy. And therefore, post-treatment, one can greatly enrich for these therapy-resistant cells. And it's obviously a challenge, as I implied, to generate therapies which directly eliminate these more resistant mesenchymal populations. But to date, there have been no such therapies developed, although there is no doubt that they can be developed.
How about how you're advocating the use of clotronate drugs along with the CTLA-4 antibody treatment?
What kind of drugs?
Clotronate drug, clotronate.
It could be that clotronate drugs, to the extent that they are tolerable clinically, may actually act synergistically with CTLA-4 therapy, if only because these clotronates can eliminate all macrophages, including the bad M2 pro-tumorigenic macrophages. That's absolutely right and an interesting idea.
Thank you, Professor Weinberg, for a very invigorating talk. But I am a little bit more confused than I was at the beginning of your talk, because you're talking about an intermediate phase within the EMT transition, which is actually promoting tumor metastases. So again, bringing us back to the plasticity, at what stage whether the intermediate EMT transition will promote tumor transitions, is there, again, it just confuses me a little bit more. So your thoughts on that, please.
Well, we believe that the acquisition of mesenchymal attributes by primary tumor cells after they move into a quasi-mesenchymal state, not into a fully mesenchymal state, this acquisition enables them to acquire motility and stemness. We know that if we eliminate stem cells from this quasi-mesenchymal population, they lose their ability, after translocating to a distant tissue, they lose their ability to seed new metastatic colonies, and therefore stemness, cancer stemness, is indeed critical to the foundation, to the founding of metastatic colonies. There are different degrees of motion towards the more mesenchymal state, but as I emphasized, cells never become entirely mesenchymal. And there's a whole series of attributes which cells acquire progressively as they move from a fully epithelial state progressively in the direction of being more mesenchymal, but again, they never become fully mesenchymal. So it's not a binary switch, which either goes one way or the other.
Thank you very much.
Hello, sir. I'm an assistant professor and I'm trying to learn leukemias in my own small way. My question, which always bothers me, is that every one of us, from your work to probably even mine today, seems to say that cancers are highly heterogeneous and there's so much variability. We even today look for one magic bullet, for treating cancers in several trials. What is your thought on this, and how do we change our approach, because it seems to be very deeply rooted?
Well, that's a very provocative and, in one sense, a very unpleasant question, because it confronts us with the grim reality that, as you said, cancer is a highly heterogeneous disease. Not only are tumors genetically heterogeneous, but as I tried to argue today, they are epigenetically heterogeneous as a consequence of the activation of these various non-genetic programs, which include not only the EMT program, but the differentiation program of the normal cells of origin. I wish I could say I had an idea for the magic bullet, but we're not there yet. And I think we need to take one step at a time. And there could be, I predict over the next 5 years, one will, for example, develop therapies which preferentially eliminate cancer stem cells. Whether that will lead to dramatic clinical regressions, I cannot say at this stage, but it's quite possible that ways of eliminating cancer stem cells pharmacologically, together with checkpoint immunotherapies, may have some dramatic outcomes. But at present, we're not there. And I would not wish to give you the hope that there will be a magic bullet. It could happen, but maybe not in my lifetime. which is not as long as your lifetime.
Thank you, sir.
May I request Dr. Amit Dutt to please unmute and raise the discussion and question. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj. Thank you, Professor Weinberg, for such an insightful talk. My name is Amit Dutt. I'm an investigator at ACTRAC working on somatic genetics of cancer. In fact, listening to your talks, my students would be wondering what are they doing with the somatic genetic alterations. So I was just wondering, there are quite a lot of emerging reports now describing the hybrid state of epithelial mesenchyma. And there are distinct genetic patterns, which describes these hybrid state of epithelial mesenchyma. Listening to your talk, I was just wondering if one were to design a metric to quantitate these hybrid state through their genetic signatures, would that be, in your thought, an indicative of a prognosis of the disease, whether the likelihood of it to metastasize? That's A. And in the same run, I also want to kind of like ask, given that I work on somatic genetics, where do they meet? Because I do see that there are specific genetic alterations which have a direction for metastasis, such as EGFR, exon 19 mutations, or exon 20 mutations, or specifically the L858R mutations in lung cancer. They go to the brain more often than compared to the other ones. So, do you envision that EMT pathway is something that mediates in a genetic specific manner, either as a genetic alteration specific manner, or these are completely two different distinct phenomena?
So Dr. Dutt, who was kind enough to invite me to this meeting, actually cites some provocative questions. How do the somatic mutations that are sustained by evolving tumor cells affect their ability to activate the EMT program? They clearly must affect the ability. And secondly, how does the EMT program affect the distant sites, the destination sites of disseminating cancer cells? And we don't really know that. It is my thought that maybe the actual sites of dissemination may not be regulated by the EMT program, but rather may be regulated by differentiation programs of normal cells of origin. And importantly, novel phenotypic and transcriptomic states that cancer cells invent after they have arrived in a distant, unfamiliar, and potentially inhospitable tumor microenvironment. So how these interact with one another is still pretty unclear. It's obvious that if you make higher levels of the RAS oncoprotein in many carcinoma cells, they will begin to produce increasing levels of TGF-beta, and that TGF-beta may act in autocrine fashions to stimulate and provoke expression of an EMT program. So there must be, as Dr. Dutt implies, some interconnection between the somatic mutations that cancer cells have sustained and their ability, their proclivity to activate various flavors of the EMT program. Beyond that, I'm at wit's end to provide a more coherent explanation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Professor Weinberg, it was excellent talk.
Thank you.
My name Gopal Kundu, Professor Gopal Kundu. I visited and met you 2016 January in your office.
Indeed, we did, when we were much younger.
Right. So my specific question to you.
Yes, please.
When you use that CD44 high and CD24 low to study that TIC, tumor initiating cells or cancer stem cell, and use your MCF7 as a model, and to study the EMT and reverse EMT. So my specific question, sometimes only these CSC markers, they are not enough to characterize the CSC or TICs. For example, if I use MDMB231, which is a TNBC or basal-like cells, I get 70-80% population, they are positive. Do you think that they belongs to CSC or TIC? Or do you suggest to use some additional CSC markers like LDH, GD2, or some additional marker to actually characterize and study the CSC and CSC specific TFs, and which ultimately controls EMTs and micro and macro metastasis.
Well, Dr. Kundu raises a very interesting question, and I agree with him. The fact is that the two markers I used here predominantly, CD24, CD44, and toward the end, CD104, are necessary, but they're not sufficient markers to accurately resolve subpopulations of cancer stem cells. And to my mind, the field still requires better stem cell markers beyond those that I've mentioned. The CD44 and 24 were used from the very beginning of the cancer stem cell field, starting already almost 20 years ago. And one needs improvements on them because those two on their own do not suffice to establish pure populations of cancer stem cells. And that's a very important area of future development, to be sure.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give a huge round of applause to Professor Weinberg.
And I would say, I thank you. Dhanyawad, Dhanyabat, Shukriya, and Nandri.
Thank you so much, sir. And it was really great to have so many questions. And I'm sure if it was a bit towards the evening, we would have got more questions. With this, we come to another very special part, where I would be introducing our Honorable Founder President, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan. Many years back, one person's vision to lead the society with education. Many years back, one person's mission was to make India a knowledge superpower. Many years back, one person's passion was to innovate through education. Together with his journey in quest for excellence, has today made Amity University a leading university across the globe. Dr. Chauhan is an embodiment of values and sanskars, who has been bestowed upon with several excellence and lifetime achievement awards for his remarkable achievements in the area of education. Today, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan's vision has translated into the internationally benchmarked campuses that have come to epitomize the Amity Education Group. He had the will to sustain a dream, and God gave him the power to deliver and make that dream a reality. It is only because of his firm belief and unparalleled vision that Amity has reached the top position with Amity campuses all over the world map. Please join us in welcoming our Honorable Founder President, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan. Sir, please show us the way ahead and pave a roadmap for the future. Huge round of applause.
Thank you, Pooja. I think this 41st International Conference of Indian Association of Cancer Research is a great fortune for our whole Amitians in India and all over the world. There could not have been a better opportunity to sit together with Indian and world-renowned cancer specialists like Dr. Weinberg and listen and know their research and work further. For me, this conference is of very special interest because my life is guided always by compulsions. I put compulsions before me, and the newspaper prints always success by compulsion. During my stay in West Germany for 28 years, I have been lecturing always in big seminars, conferences, that for cancer, together with the brilliant scientists like Dr. Weinberg, the Indian brain will find a solution. Now, I have the compulsion to prove it because I am respected or liked only because what I say is done. So therefore, this conference is a great milestone in my idea that the synergy of brains of our scientists from the advanced countries and my brilliant Indian brains, which I know are brilliant, one day are going to find a solution I've been telling to my young, bright researchers, PhD scholars, if we do not have some very sophisticated equipment in India, you go wherever you like in Europe or America and work with the scientists like Dr. Weinberg. He's Pittsburgh. He's proud of Pittsburgh. My brother's son has studied there in the University of Pittsburgh. So I would say that all these deliberations, I was engrossed in a very deep work. On another laptop, I was seeing something, and suddenly a voice comes from MC, 6 o'clock. I could note that this is the voice of our Pooja. Let me tell to all, Pooja is a very, very renowned scientist, researcher in MIT biotechnology, but still they call him because she does also MC so nicely. I heard also Dr. Partha Majumdar, the opening remarks. I heard also our Dr. B.C. Das, about whom Dr. Silva Murthy told in the end, let me now tell a few words about Das. That time I was thinking, Das, he is the Das means, slave or servant, is of cancer research. He has not the motivation but obsession. So in Hindi they say Das is a servant. So he is a servant of the cancer research, and I know the great scientists working him and his leadership. So I think with the help of Professor Partha Majumdar and other scientists, those who are speaking in the next 2-3 days, Dr. Priya Srinivas, please give also my regards to your present president, Dr. Radhakrishnan, because I visited your institution, this Institute of Biotechnology in Trivandrum, quite many years back. That time, I had a research institution in a rented house, but not sufficient space. And then that time, the director told Dr. Chauhan, I give you 4 rooms for your research work. And he allotted 4 beautiful rooms in your center of RGCB. And we remained few years there. But when RCGB turned from this state laboratory to the central laboratory, then they were short of space, and then I bought my own building and doing a lot of research. So I don't know, Priyaji, if Radhakrishnan ji is still the director of this institution. And when I visited, there was also a Dr. Pillai. I don't know if Dr. Pillai, this present director, was also that time, but I remember your institution, and we have very deep-rooted work with Kerala scientists, brain of Kerala, and also with the RCGB. Our Dr. Pushpangan was also very closely associated with there. I was reading that this Indian Institute of Cancer Research has perhaps still also headquarters in Bombay, with branches in different cities in India. So I would request Dr. B.C. Das to speak to the President Radhakrishnan ji and the Secretary Priya Srinivas ji. Can they consider that we also make a branch for them at our MIT campus, Noida? Because always, if you have a contact, which I will not say compels, but give you the possibility to be in the regular contact, then the results are more. As I have been told, we give a lot of valued outcome. This conference would lead to a tremendous outcome for research. The big speakers are coming, and Professor Weinberg, I was amazed to listen about your citations. I think maybe this is the biggest number of citations, 1 million, and I have also read your biodata. Last year, the Indian government celebrated the centenary years of scientists and invited them. So I was thinking that 2042, sir, Indian government will invite you to give a centenary lecture in Indian, because then you will be 100 years old, born in 1942, and 2042 you will be invited for lecture. And by the way, they may also invite me as a notable scientist and institution builder, because that will be also my centenary. So I think we will have you in India at our lecture many times, but that time you should note down the date, that you should keep free the date when this centenary function happens, because your thought-provoking ideas and your positive thinking. Generally, people say, "Oh, these are very provocative questions," but you told in a positive way that I am very happy to listen positive these questions, and that shows your bent of mind, and we really respect. I will respect Dr. B.C. Das. We are going to bestow the honor of honorary doctorate today to Dr. Weinberg. I would like to also bestow upon him the honor when you do the next, one of the next international conference of Indian Association Cancer Research in our campus. We give the Lifetime Achievement Award to Dr. Weinberg, because he deserves much more than your honorary doctorate, the Lifetime Achievement Award. Very few scientists like him give the motivation and show the path to do the research. And I must tell to my brilliant scientists, if you're working, have an optimistic view. We will find the solution for cancer together with the brains, as Dr. Srimamurthy told, synergy of brains, synergy contact, and synergy outcome. These are the weapons to achieve anything and everything. Subhrajit Vishwas told about my COVID formula, create opportunities via innovative determination. So I think this is today again is the same thing. We will find the formula, we will find the solution through innovative determination. And all those who are sitting in E2, this is the biggest hall in the from space in the campus Noida, and almost it was full. It shows the great interest of the members of Indian Association of Cancer Research. So I really compliment the president and also all those who are the executive members of that to give us the opportunity, because this has given us so much motivation to work very hard. And all those who have studied the books of Professor Weinberg, I really appreciate. Professor Weinberg, I must tell you that Dr. Das has such brilliant brains of scientists. In India, there is a scheme of Ramlingan Swami Fellow, Ramanujam Fellow, Wellcome Trust Fellow, and these 3-4 fellowship. And we have the maximum such brilliant brains in the whole country. And from that maximum, we have the maximum with Dr. B.C. Das. They are selected through a very, very difficult procedure. And when they get this fellowship, this is given to the persons, those who have been abroad, but want to come back to India. They are eligible for applying this fellowship. And I have got more than 35, 40 such fellows with me. This shows, sir, that your coming to us is really worth your busy schedule to find time for us. And Dr. Varinder Shukla, you know more than me now, 22 years with me. And the way you speak, I must tell you openly, I'm making a collapse room in your office because you work for 18 hours a day. Sometimes you collapse, we'll take you for half an hour to collapse room. And you must have heard Dr. Atul Chauhan. He is a miracle leader, outstanding leader. And after that, my speaking has no value, because people know that if the son is so worthy, so visionary, so thinking forward, then father must be good. But my people say, no, sir, you have to speak a little, because he has done, as he told, engineering from University College London and economics and finance from London School of Economics. His brother, who is additional president, Asim Chauhan, is a product of Wharton. So we all know the working styles of America, Germany, and all over the world. Professor Weinberg, I am making a global research hub at New York, Long Island, in 175-acre campus. 175 acre into 10,000 square meter. I have to myself calculate, just at the seashore of Atlantic. So I tell to Dr. Srimamurthy and Dr. Balwinder Shukla and B.C. Das that we should announce making a cancer research hub from there, where the scientists on cancer will come all over the world. So this is a big campus. Sometime we will invite you with your family there, stay as my guest. It is a heaven. They are just at the sea, and I think it's not very far from Pittsburgh. So I think if you will accept our offer, then also we will invite also some other scientists from America to be with you, because so that your visit is just no relaxation visit, that also become a very positive visit. The scientists, those who are speaking in the coming days, is something great. Dr. V. Siddhas, I must compliment your people, how much hard work they must have done to win such great minds. Everybody is so busy, and today our doctor from ILBS, Dr. Shiv Sarin spoke, and other scientists I heard. So I would say that, sir, Professor Robert, we commit you that with your guidance and help and support, we, with the combination of brains, will find a solution for cancer. Because I will not ask today, time is short, but sometime I'll ask you that what helped the Indian system of medicines, the natural products, Ayurveda, homeopathy, and all these things can give for cancer research, because your opinion about that will be the authentic opinion, because my people say that there are so many remedies which are found in addition to the allopathic and other methods of modern medicine. These things are also, but that I will put you sometime separately email. I'm very much inquisitive to know if these people team can be helped. Dr. Simamurthy, you have amazed me. I thought you are a defense specialist. You are a other projects, life sciences specialist. But today you have told me you know a lot about the cancer. Sir, Professor Weinberg, Dr. B.C. Das is called super boss of science and technology in our all universities. And as told, these 185,000 students, I think we will show them this today's recording, because we have a special cancer cluster in all of our universities. Special class in all, I think more than 250 people are specialized scientists, and they're all listening, because Dr. Silamurthy told them that you cannot miss this. So I would say this was a very, very important area. Shubhajit Vishwas, Manoj Garg, and Dhruv. Tell to your all colleagues, unbelievable hard work. I will be listening in the coming days also, because it is not my interest, it is my obsession. And if I have obsession, then I do it, I achieve it. And this coming of Dr. Majumdar, Dr. Robert Weinberg has given me unbelievable enthusiasm and positive thinking to find a solution. All those who are participants, I think you people are unique. You are different from all people in the world, in overseas or us, because in this late hour you are sitting here. It means you have the ambition to do something which is extraordinary. I repeat, you are different, and with this obsession, you can really achieve anything you like. There was a professor from Oxford last week who was lecturing, when there is a will, there is a way. So Professor Robert Weinberg, we have a will, together with the guidance of you and colleagues, we have a will to find the solution for cancer, and we will find it. And I once again thank and appreciate everything, and also to Dr. Atul Chauhanji, in spite of this busy schedule. This Dr. B.C. Das shows the importance of your conference. We both hardly find time to go in one conference, but it is charm of your invitation that we came, and you invited such big dignitaries. We could not avoid not to be here. So my blessings to all, and I hope we'll get further guidance. And this setup of a cancer research cluster, Dr. Murthy, are you hearing? Dr. B.C. Das? This cluster in our global research hub in New York, Long Island, is declared today. It is announced. Now from tomorrow we will start working on it, how to do it. We will take also guidance from our worthy scientists, our other scientists, I don't know the name, he asked very good question. And my compliment to all those who asked the question, very pertinent questions. So thank you very much to all. It was a great occasion, a great foresighted vision, what we got today. Thank you.
Let's give a huge round of applause to our visionary founder president. So thank you so much for your motivating and inspiring words. And it is because of your blessings and your motivation that we are able to do so much. Thank you so much. With this, we would be starting the second phase of this program, which is conferring upon Dr. Weinberg honorary doctorate honoris causa. And yes, and we would be taking a 2 minutes break. I request everybody to kindly be seated. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a special convocation of Amity University. We warmly welcome the recipient of honorary doctoral degree, Professor Dr. Robert A. Weinberg, Daniel K. Ludwig Professor of Cancer Research, Whitehead Institute, MIT, USA. I request Honorable Chancellor, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, to declare the special convocation open.
I declare the special convocation open.
I now request Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Balvinder Shukla, to present the esteemed recipient of honorary doctoral degree in the presence of Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, Honorable Founder President, Dr. Atul Chauhan, Honorable Chancellor, AUUP and President, RBEF, Dr. W. Selvamurthy, President, ASTEF, Amity University, and Professor Dr. Bhudev C. Das, Chairman, AMSR, Dean, Health and Allied Sciences, and Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, Noida.
Honorable Founder President and Honorable Chancellor, Sir, I present before you Professor Dr. Robert A. Weinberg, Daniel K. Ludwig Professor for Cancer Research, Whitehead Institute, MIT, USA.
I now request Professor Dr. B.C. Das, Dean, Head and Allied Sciences, to read the citation.
Amity University, with full honor, confers upon Dr. Robert A. Weinberg, degree of Doctor of Science, DSc honoris causa, for his exceptional vision, outstanding contributions, and deep commitment to research and education, propagation of knowledge, professionalism, and direction in pursuit of excellence, strategic vision, and inspirational leadership dedicated to the greater good of the humanity. Dr. Robert A. Weinberg, Daniel K. Ludwig Professor for Cancer Research, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, is an eminent scientist, great visionary, researcher, renowned author, and a dynamic leader, a global icon of all-round success. Dr. Robert Weinberg is a person of profound vision and foresight who has deep-rooted determination to succeed against all odds. A veritable researcher, avid author, Dr. Weinberg has held numerous coveted positions, executed significant assignments with great recognition as a renowned scientist. His pathbreaking research, as we all know, very much aware of his epoch-making contributions that we all read in our research time till date, Hallmark of Cancer. This is Hanahan and Weinberg. These two authors always, and we know that what he has contributed this is their unique qualities. It is unique in guiding us as to how cancer spreads and what gives cancer stem cells, their unique qualities, and the molecular players involved in the formation of cancer and cancer metastasis, which has contributed in combating the disease. Dr. Weinberg received global accolades for discoveries of the first human oncogene, RAS oncogene, and the first tumor suppressor gene, RB, retinoblastoma susceptibility gene, which plays a very pivotal role, rather control switch for the uncontrolled proliferations of the cells, which is the basis of the cancer. He has mentored many eminent scientists, including Tyler Jacks, William Cianan, and Clifford, and many other people. This is named a few. His outstanding accomplishments, whilst holding numerous prestigious appointments and assignments, including director of prestigious Ludwig Center of the MIT and research professor of American Cancer Society, earned him a unique respect and also position in the global scientific scientific community. Robert Weinberg is also affiliated with the Board of Institute and is founding member of the Whitehead Institute of Biomedical Research, co-founder of Verat-STEM, a biopharmaceutical company focused on discovering and developing drugs to treat cancer patients who are undergoing cancer, and this is targeting cancer and cancer stem cells. Besides being a great scientist and researcher, Dr. Weinberg is also a renowned author. His textbook, The Biology of Cancer, published by Girl and Science, and also two important accounts intended for a wider audience. One, Re-engage Cells, How Cancer Begins, the Cancer Masters series. This is a series of books, and Racing to the Beginning of the Road, the search for the origin of cancer, have been well received among the students, scientists, and researchers. For his zeal and extraordinary research contribution, he has been conferred with numerous coveted honors and prestigious awards, including Golden Plate Award of the American Academy of Achievement, National Medal of Science, and the Keough Medical Science Prize, Wolf Prize in Medicine, and Albert Einstein World Award of Science, including all the medical and the Academy Awards and the Science Academy Awards of the United States of America. Robert Weinberg is an embodiment of continuous excellence, highest professionalism, graciousness, and generosity. He has immense quest for knowledge, the courage of conviction, and a direct and forthright approach. It is with almost respect that Amity University confers the Doctor of Science, DSc honoris causa upon Dr. Robert Weinberg. Thank you.
I request Honorable Founder President and Honorable Chancellor, sir, to please confer upon Professor Dr. Robert A. Weinberg the Honorary Doctorate, DSc honoris causa.
By virtue of the authority vested in me as the Chancellor of Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, I hereby confer upon Professor Robert A. Weinberg the doctoral degree DSc honoris causa.
I now request Professor Dr. Robert A. Weinberg to kindly deliver his acceptance speech.
Needless to say, I'm extraordinarily pleased and flattered to receive this recognition, this honorary degree. I've been working in this field for 45 years. Honorary degrees like this only confirm the impression of the people in my group that we are working on things that are relevant and interesting to many different people. That said, I must say that my greatest pleasure in life, it does not come from various forms of recognition, but instead from working with the young people in the laboratories and helping them figure out the solutions to complex biological problems which we confront when we study cancer cells. Having said all that, I must take some exception to Dr. Ashok Chauhan's statement, Mike, that he and I, at the age of 80, I'm almost there, will most surely reach the age of 100, where we can again meet and celebrate our centenary. The fact is, to my mind, we need to realize that although that's a much desirable goal, it may not happen inevitably. That is to say, we're hardly guaranteed another 20 years, but if it happens, neither of us will object. Having said that, I will just pass on to the review what I have thought over the years about the solutions to the ends of cancer. In the mid 1960s and late 1960s and early 1970s, we were convinced that understanding the causes of cancer, the root causes, would be critical to developing new kinds of dramatic cures. And that once we understood the root causes of cancer at the molecular and cellular and biochemical levels, cures would emerge that would truly allow us to vanquish the disease. And so I and many of my colleagues began this work in the late 1970s, 1980s, beginning to understand the molecular and genetic roots of cancer, which were previously not really known. Indeed, by the mid 1970s, we still did not understand what was responsible for creating human cancers, and we certainly had not demonstrated the identification of responsible genes. And so in the ensuing 20 years, there was great progress made in discovering the genetic root causes of cancer. And with that, we imagined that there would surely come rapid advances in the treatment of the disease. And to be sure, we understand much more about treating the disease, cancer, but the fact is that our anticipation of dramatic advances in the treatment of disease has been frustrated by the grim reality that cancer is vastly more complex than we realized, and that unlike cardiovascular disease, which is very simple, cancer is a collection of many, many diseases, each of which behaves differently than the other in terms of its prognosis and in terms of its preferred treatment. And so our anticipation was in fact frustrated by the grim realities of the biological complexity of cancer. Having said that, where are we now? Well, 50 years after this long odyssey has begun, we understand a lot about the causal forces of cancer. We have made some incremental advances, but still we're not there. Cancer is a formidable enemy. Many of the pharmacological interventions against cancer developed by those who have in fact been holding off the advance of cancer, but hardly developing cures. In my own case, the discovery of the RAS oncogene in 1980-81 was thought maybe to lead directly to different kinds of treatments. But here we are 40 years later, and only now has there begun the utilization, the exploitation of the understanding of the RAS oncogene that will lead in any way to any kind of therapeutic utility. So the anticipation of myself and many of my colleagues that understanding cause would lead inevitably to new, novel, revolutionary cures has actually been frustrated. That's where we are at present. At present, it seems to me that immunotherapy, which I discussed briefly, holds one hope for developing wide-ranging treatments of various forms of cancer, not just the melanomas in which it was initially successfully pursued. But that remains for the future. I'm very optimistic that immunotherapy represents a critical future goal and success in research. But I cannot know how all therapies that are developed will succeed in eliminating cancers and delivering durable clinical responses that last for the lifetime, the life expectancy of the patient under treatment. So we're in a very difficult phase right now, much promise, let's say in the area of immunotherapy, and much frustration in the limited gains in lifespan that have been gained as a consequence of therapy, pharmacological therapies, attack various types of cancer. I would finish now with one, what I think very important insight is, that is that ultimately the greatest reductions in cancer mortality will not come from the brilliance of preclinical cancer researchers or oncologists. The greatest reductions in cancer mortality will come from reducing the incidence of disease. And as a consequence, by reducing the incidence, one will dwarf anything that I or my colleagues could achieve through developing new kinds, dramatic new kinds of therapy. And so we must begin slowly. The epidemiologists who explain to us what the risk factors are for various kinds of cancer, because their work ultimately will prove much more instructive and powerful in reducing cancer incidence than will the work of colleagues myself developing the etiology, the molecular mechanisms of the disease. So I applaud those at the meeting here who are involved in trying to understand how lifestyle, including diet and environment, can actually influence cancer incidence. Because, as I say, I'm convinced of the notion that in the long term, reducing cancer mortality will come in large part from in reducing incidence, preventing the disease from appearing in the first place, rather than treating it once it has reared its ugly head. So thank you again. I am very grateful to you for receiving me in such an extraordinary fashion. And as we say in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Dhanyawad, Dhanyabat, Shukriya, and Nandri. Thank you very much for having me here.
Professor Weinberg, welcome to the Amity family. We are truly honored by your acceptance of the doctorate of our university. And this world needs great scientists and human beings like you. And we strongly believe there is nothing more powerful than collective wishes and prayers. And all the hundreds of thousands of members of the Amity family, wishes are there that as long as humanly possible, and as Dr. Chauhan said, at least till the centenary, you will keep contributing to the field of science. We are extremely grateful to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Weinberg, for your acceptance speech. I now request Honorable Chancellor, AUUP, to declare the special convocation closed.
I hereby declare the special convocation closed.